Whose phone is that? Okay, we have a screening first, no, of Shaman Showman, the life and work of Roberto Villanueva, to start off this a conversation with four very interesting women. So let's start the screening so we can have more time with the conversation because there's a lot to talk about, I'm sure. And Earth, okay, GBSE, okay, which I hope most of you have seen. So we thought of doing this session with three women who were at some point involved and still are, no, part of the community. Abbie, I didn't know as early as 2004 you were
Yeah.
already part of this family, no, of artists.
Was
Diba?
fortunate.
Oh, when I saw her name. Okay. So anyway, before anything else, let me officially introduce our panelists. So first, Angel. Ang bata mo, Angel, nun.
I once was young.
Yes, we all were. Is a filmmaker, media artist, educator, curator, and cultural organizer living between Manila and New York. One of her films, of course, is screening part of the exhibition upstairs. She has curated and produced several visual art and film exhibitions, including one here with Ateneo Art Gallery and cross-cultural exchange projects. She is currently preparing to launch, finally, her book Markets of Resistance, which is happening, hopefully,
September 18th.
yes, September 18th. We'll make an announcement about that. Our second panelist is Myra Beltran, a contemporary dancer. Again, Myra, I remember you in that during that period. No? Choreographer and curator known for shaping independent dance community in the Philippines. She first trained in classical ballet and pursued a dancing career in the U.S., Germany, and Yugoslavia. And performed with Ballet Philippines and the Lab Project Philippines. She founded Dance Forum in 1997 that led to a flourishing independent contemporary dance community in the Philippines. Rica Concepcion, who was responsible for the film together with her husband, Egay Navarro, are documentary filmmakers known for chronicling the lives of artists and figures such as Santiago Bose, Roberto Villanueva, of course, and Jose Maceda, as well as significant events in the art community like the Baguio Arts Guild festivals. Navarro and Concepcion are integral part of the art community and are likely to have one of the largest alternative archives in the country, which is actually something we need to, present more of, no? And the youngest, Abbie SJ Lara. San Juan Lara is a director, video editor, and illustrator. Her body of works includes editing and directing television documentary film series, such as GMA Network's Eyewitness. She also facilitates film workshops, including the Film Development Council's Make the Cut, editing workshops held in Baguio City in 2016. We also worked with her in the last, or a few years ago, for two Baguio studio visit videos, no? Which in a way also started this project, no? Which we did with Art Fair Philippines. Okay, so ladies, thank you. Perhaps before going into some questions that were sent to you earlier, let's first start with the film we just saw, no? I guess what were the emotions that you went through? No, si Rica muna siguro.
It's really very hard to watch the film and harder, and it was also very, very hard to actually edit the film because at first, so I was editing for 2 years doing this with Kidlat De Gia. And of course, these people are very close to us. So every time we edit, he'll cry. Like, really, literally. And like at that time, ano pa um, it was so fresh pa. Maraming bagay na we were going through. But there was really a lot of tears and a lot of decisions was based also on our emotions. So it took us 2 years to actually finish the film. And the hardest part is, so you saw Santiago Bose being interviewed. Imagine, we were interviewing him and then he dies the following day. So, it was another emotional roller coaster for us. And every time, kasi you see edited na. So what we have is the entire raw footage. And there were so many things na we kept on looking. Did he know he was going to die? Would you have felt that he was about to die? And Kidlat he's German and his mind really moves. So, ang dami niyang theory. So it was very, very hard. Anyway, just to let you know that it may be Egay Navarro, my husband, and me, but really, overall, because the editor, the main editor for this entire film is Kidlat. So I'd like to acknowledge that he's like half of the film talaga. And he made a lot of decision and and my husband is like a big fan of Kidlat kasi he had this thing. He was very German in terms of technical in editing. So my husband really loved that. So ang nangyayari, biglang silang dalawa yung magkakampi and then ako magkaaway nila. Parang ganyan with decision making. Anyway, also just to remind you, yesterday was Robert's birthday. So, okay, showman, shaman. So, showman siya. Pero at this point, I think shaman siya kasi na-manipulate niya lahat kami. And, like how many years after, we're showing and the memory and the works of Robert lives on because he was able to plan it. At that time, it's not like now that you can just get a phone and then document. So, at that time, there's maraming artists. Pero konti lang sa kanila ang nag-isip na talagang i-document. A lot of the artists have documents of their works on the gallery wall. They're all on the wall. But Robert took his time, spent thousands of pesos for long distance just to call people who had cameras and really tell them, can you come to my exhibit? Can you document? And, at the time, a lot of our community didn't have money. So it was really a big effort. And, so he had friends that he would convince and, talk it out and come there with their camera. And he made sure at least there was a film camera, a video camera, na napaka-rare talaga. 1 in a million yon. You may have a camera, but you don't have film. You may have a film, but when can you actually, print it? So, ang daming obstacles. But Robert understood archiving and documenting. And that is the reason why we're able to show this. And I know that the film was very, very long. I remembered someone, in the year 2000 or 2005, we cannot show a film for more than 2 hours. So they said, can you cut it down? And Kidlat said, ang sandali na nga ng buhay ng Tito Robert ko, pati yung film niya, papa-edit niyo pa. So, it did not happen because of that. And yeah, so we're actually showing this, or people can watch it. And we are just instruments in doing that. So I still believe that Robert manipulated us to actually come out with this film. And then now he's a shaman.
And that we all have. Hi. Oh, okay. Um, oh, I mean, there's some of you in the audience here that are Baguio people, so, you know, I think it's kind of wonderful that for those of you, our friends that are in the audience, I think we do come to a screening like this and a show like the one upstairs, which for those of you who have not seen the exhibition, I highly, highly recommend it. And I say that without bias. It really is such an important exhibition that equalizes and democratizes contemporary art, artists, you know, traditional Cordillera arts, and film, and you know, everything, even the performances that took place during the opening. So I just wanted to hats off, and thank you for inviting us to this as well. I look at this film with many different lives that are clearly all part of my life now. And you know, you might have heard us giggling and whispering in the front, sorry if that was a little loud. But because we do come to this film, all of us, I mean, Abbie, you were young, but I mean, Myra, we all go way back, 30-something years, right? And I know that it's because of these two and all those people in that film that over 37 years has kept me here and doing the kinds of projects that I do. And Markets of Resistance, I think, is the last example of, or it shows these linkages. And I feel like the film really, really captures that in all of its rawness, in all of its, Robert really, as Rica mentioned, could be quite manipulative. And a beauty like that, you know, somehow you're like, oh, okay, you know, like, I mean, you know, you can't help it on some level. But anyway, I just feel like, you know, your film, everybody's films, you captured our histories. And we're very, I feel like we're all lucky to be able to be part of its continuation, right? I mean, I, for one, would love to hear what you young people in the audience, as always, think about coming to something like this. And do you know of these artists? Do you know of this kind of community building where arts, heritage, various multiculturals, cultures converge? And now you've seen this, so I hope you tell other people to come to the show and everything else. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but you know, it still touches me, this film. So, yeah.
I mean, that film, there's so many, I mean, seeing it now again, there's so many people there who are a great part of our lives, and it's such a precious film because they're all there. Yeah, Rene, Kidlat,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. Christine, Pepito,
I mean,
it's all there. So maybe, like Angel, I also have, you know, immense gratitude to have been part of it. But like I also saw the film earlier, so in a way it was so effortless, and I think that effortlessness, because it was a sense of play, I think has stayed with me all this time. So for that, I'm grateful. And maybe I have to commend Boots for, you know, for featuring the Baguio Arts Guild and showing this film and, you know, reliving it again for everybody. So yeah, there's so much to unpack.
Hello.
Okay. Shock. Sorry. For the grades. Anyway, what was the question again? Siglang ganun.
Your
I was
thoughts
just
about
listening,
seeing this again.
absorbing everything. Well, my thoughts about this, parang when they were asking me to edit for them, yeah, sure. I mean, I worked with Howie in Eyewitness, sabi ko, sige, and then I met Ate Rica and Kuya Egay in Probe. And my kind of reintroduction again to Baguio Art Scene was through them. Kasi tinisis namin nila JJ, yung kaklase ko ngayon, si JJ, from Baguio. Si Tatay Kidlat. So, kasi parang siya yung thesis namin. And then, fast forward to Probe. Tapos, ang galing nung mga connection. Na-meet ko sila Kuya Egay doon. Tapos, si Abbie, sama natin na PH sa, kasi may Baguio Arts Festival noong 1998. So, introduction ko ulit sa Baguio ay through sa kanila. And, yeah, I mean, ang school ko ng other production na hindi TV ay through them. So, sila Kuya Egay, ganito, tapos na-meet ko sila. Manong Santi, I remember that interview dun sa studio niya. And, syempre, nung bata ka, hindi mo naman, I was in my 20s, so parang, when you were a kid, parang, it's work. Yes, you need to, assist them, But at the same time, I knew kind of that these people that I met play a role. For some reason, an important event, whether that was an interview, parang I'm with the mga pillars of something great. I don't know, I can't pinpoint that, pero parang there's something special there. And then, maybe many years later, I would find myself again, watching this, and what were the feelings? Una, it was my first online editing. I'm so used to the analog console player. And ito, parang they all gave me a chance to, play with it. It's your first time. I was like, yeah, di-edit ka dyan, ganyan. And then at the same time, the thing with TV editing is just that, parang ang ganda ng mga, the footage that the cameraman took were all great. You want to include them in, but because of a time element for TV, parang laging kinakat. So, my first time to really play with footage was with the Shaman Showman. Tapos parang, ang ganda kasi parang, ang ganda ng footage nila Manong Egay ng mga friends nila, playing with, even sa raw footage pa lang, nagpe-play na sila. And I play with that too. So parang that was the interaction during editing. And ang saya kasi, after, wala masyadong kinot dun sa mga inedit ko. Which is, I was so happy kasi parang, kasi I intended that way kasi ganito. I edited it that way because of this. And they didn't cut it. Probably they saw it. And also, I think it was also the beginning for me to see, even though I don't even know about that it's happening, that I see the process. May proseso na akong nakikita. Because I see co-editors like Kidlat and Oliver. So, I see different kinds of editors as filmmakers. So, ako kasi, my introduction to TV as editor, give you a script, edit that, tapos na. But with the Shaman Showman, it was my first introduction also na editing as art. And so, I saw it with Kidlat's work in that. I saw it with Olivier. And so, parang, I think I was doing okay because I'm playing with it and they're playing with it. So, I guess I'm doing okay. So, parang ganon. So, it was my, Shaman Showman is parang significant part in my kind of process that I'm still right now making kapa-kapa. Yun po.
And she's finishing a film now, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like this fabulous continuation. Sorry, I really forget my. There's this beautiful kind of continuum that I see. I think people can hear me, yeah? From all the works, from if you look at both of us have also pieces that are in the show. And like if you look at, so the piece that I have in there is called To Baguio with Love. And Kawayan Digea had asked me, put something in for, because in 2011, it was Access Art Project's first exhibition in Burnham Park. And in so many ways, you know, when you grow up in this kind of community, it's part of you, right? And so Kawayan, as you can see, he hasn't changed much, you know, since this time. When you listen to him talk and articulate about art and the ephemeralness of not just his elders or the people that were his mentors, but his own. And I felt like when he did this exhibition in 2011, he was like channeling and paying this extraordinary tribute to all the people that came before him in the first Baguio Arts Festival in '87. And there were several, I think the first international was '89, and then the last one officially was like 2 years after 2004, somewhere around there. Anyway, I can, and Rica, not Rica, Myra, this is why we all come together, and this is the beauty, I feel, of some form of community art. It's high art, low art are converging. Manila doesn't have that, no offense to Manila, but in part, perhaps because of the kind of colonial history that it embedded itself in and upheld. Whereas I feel like Baguio, the Cordilleras, was always resistant and remains that way now. So, I mean, I just wanted to point out, again, to kind of cycle back to this continuum that's circular and that's quite beautiful, that I hope Manila people can see by going to the exhibition, by seeing these works, and when Abbie finishes her new piece, you know, no pressure. You'll
No pressure, really pressure.
You'll really, and then when you come to the book launch, I'll plug my book now, you're really gonna get even more of this circular energies. So much of this film you're gonna see in the book, because we're all shooting. We're all, I mean, the stuff of Robert in Brisbane, you know, I dreamt of him getting his hair lopped off, and I was on the train from Sydney to Brisbane. So when I got up there, I wasn't shocked at all. And I dreamt of his death. I mean, while they were burning him, I was in New York, and it's 12 hours difference. I saw the whole thing in my sleep. And, you know, all that kind of stuff, I mean, I'm not crazy, okay? But it is about this Baguio kind of energy. And I just, you know, want to keep going back around to that because it is special. It really is. And I'm curious what you all think, quite honestly. I'm just dying to hear what, you know, Mannix and Wig and Carol, I mean, people who, and Lilia and Craig, I mean, you all, like, know these people. This is like family to you, too. So can I do that?
Yeah,
Can I just ask you guys?
Let me just say
Sorry.
something. When we planned for this exhibition, I wasn't really expecting it would turn out this rich. I was telling Kawayan, I simply asked him to curate a show of artists from Baguio and the Cordillera, and I was thinking maybe contemporary works. What really gave the project gravitas, were actually the films, because it strengthened, it gave context to their practice. And watching this, you would understand now why the exhibit turned out that way. Why artists from Baguio and the Cordillera, you know, got together in these different iterations of creativity. I just want to say, you mentioned earlier, Angel, that was it correct that when my understanding is you said Manila's colonial past?
No,
History,
what I
or
was
was it-
getting, yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
mean, what I
please.
was getting at is I feel that it's not just Baguio. I mean, I think Bacolod, you're starting to see it in other regions more in terms of what I was getting at about Baguio and the differences between Baguio and Manila. Largely for me, in part, has to do with how the communities, and let's just speak specifically about art practices. It's easier. We're more resistant in the North, and the kinds of collaborations between, modern contemporary artists with artisans, right? Like in the lowlands, you don't really see that kind of synergy. I mean, there's a young woman that's fabulous that's out in Lukban who's been working with these. There are like 4 older weavers that what is it, pandan?
Buntal, Pandan and Buntal,
Yeah,
the weavers.
and I was like in tears because I thought, here we go. Here's, what is she, 26 years old, and it was so beautiful to me that she saw the need for this convergence. And in Baguio, it's like no brainer. That's been going on forever, right? I mean, this is not, and so that was part of my point, in that the colonial history and mentality, and sort of, it's understandable that there is a pull to the Western art. I mean, we know that. That's the only point.
I have a question for you, Angel, but a quick comment on what... Oh, I'm Craig Charlin. I think Baguio traditionally has been the place where everybody in Manila who can't take them Manila anymore escapes. And you go up to Baguio to get away from the confines and the colonialism of Imperial Manila. And that's true for Bacolod, but it's particularly true for Baguio, because it's so... When we lived in Baguio, it was always like everyone would come up to Baguio, you could meet everyone there. And even during the heights of martial law, you knew that you were more free, you could express yourself without worrying so much. So Baguio's always fulfilled that need. But I do have a specific question, and you were talking about the importance of cinema. And this documentary is extremely comprehensive, but there was one part of Roberto's work that was missing, and you may know the answer to this better than you, Angel, but Roberto made a movie with Brickshaw Santos.
De Mortis. No, but Bricio was the director.
The Mortis.
Yeah.
And does that exist, or does anybody know about it?
It's Bricio's film. I mean, I've tried to screen it at festivals, and I couldn't get I tried to ask to screen it in a festival before, because it's an important film, actually. Not just, I mean, for many reasons. Robert happens to be the actor. Oh, it's called De Mortis, and it's set in the town De Mortis. And Bricio made this in the 80s, late 80s, early 80s, and
Very early.
Robert plays this shaman,
Yeah.
a healer. And another one?
Shaman warrior.
But Robert wasn't part of that. No, Robert wasn't part of Shaman Warriors. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, your question, Craig, has to do with why wasn't it part of this documentary?
Or just, does it exist? I saw it once backwards
Okay,
a long time ago.
technically before, so you saw some films, it's so expensive to have it transferred, right? So
It's not digital, it's on
No, it's film.
16 or 35.
yeah, it's 16. So at the time, it was like that. So we don't want to consider that But luckily, we did not transfer these films on high-end blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like, we went to another filmmaker, Don Pennybaker, and at the time, he already had a digital camera. So what we did, we projected it, and then we shot it.
But Angel, could you just explain a little bit more? Because you said it's, I saw the thing backwards on the editing table, so it was really weird. And that was in like 1982 or
How did you
80.
see it backwards?
I was at Brickshot. They were running it on the editing table, and I was there.
You know, I can't remember all of it, but
It's
I
so
have
important.
certain memories that Robert actually cracked me up to no end with. I love the stories of them finding, like they had to go get the chicken gizzards and all this stuff
so
because.
he was with this actress, Maiden Nicolas. And she would say like, oh, he's so scary. But he was very nice because I think she was very young, but there she was supposed to be like the patient and she was
Yeah.
going to be raped by
It's a
Robert.
disturbing film because Robert, it is a disturbing film. I mean, because, and also when you finally, if you meet Robert and he's like a praying mantis, I always thought that Robert's totem was a praying mantis because of the way he moved, right, Myra? He always had this, I don't know, that's my thing. And then he's like really creepy in De Mortis. He is. He's like about to rape this woman, and it's like, whoa, you're supposed to be a healer. You know, I mean, it's anyway.
He's acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that.
I think I saw it. I think I saw it online. I'm not sure if it was during the pandemic. I would think because there was this surge of like online festivals, and that's where I got to see the Mortis. I think
Wow.
it's one of the.
Yeah,
I forgot
think it's
who
a
organized
really
it, but I think-
important- it's an
Because-
important independent film.
Yeah.
It's a very important independent film.
I think FDCP would have it, definitely, because he was like the head of FDC.
Thank you. Mannix, your thoughts about the film? I know you were telling us.
Okay, I'm Mannix Santos, photographic artist though. Robert, I had the pleasure of hosting Robert when he was in Australia, when he was diagnosed with his leukemia and he was waiting for a bone marrow transplant. And whilst there, I had the pleasure of the 24/7 for 6 months of having the slow motion praying mantis kind of like, you know, performance art in my backyard, in the kitchen, when he was said, Mannix, I'm going to cook dinner. No, lunch. Sigurado dinner na yan.
Right.
Robert is one person that would take his ritual in preparing things into full kind of like full scale. Everything is ritual, from the choices of the materials, ingredients, the spices, and everything, and delivers it, executes it in the most ritualistic, theatrical manner as well. And that takes time. So, with that, and a lot of those influences in my work also kind of like rubbed into my expression of art, because he was the one who said, Mannix, you know, stop singing, like, you know, you're playing music, you know, stop singing songs of other people, just sing your own voice. Yeah, and then when you're taking photographs, start taking pictures of create your own images, you know. So that's kind of like the seed that Robert started in me, so, and which I took into practice and cultivated it, and I think led me to the place where I was in my kind of expression of work. And especially because of the DNA of that Robertness and the Baguio Art Guild and the Baguio kind of like ecosystem of art practitioners. I think having Robert there just reinforced the fact that being an exile, culturally, geographically, living in Australia, gave me a sense of home. You know, home in this kind of like, in the pursuit of my art, and yearning of my art that's kind of having Robert there connected me to it and making me believe and giving me the pride of having that Filipino DNA in expressing and practicing my art. That's it. So thank you so much for that, Robert, spirit and ghost and shamanistic prophecy in my life.
Thank you. Oh, wig. We saw wig earlier.
Wig, do you have that photograph? The one that you're taking of everybody at the cafe? You took the portrait at the cafe. Do you have that actual photograph?
Ano also, Wig took a photo of the entire family before they went up to Baguio. Di ba when Robert could still stand in horseshoe, I remember.
I have so much memories of both Santi and Robert that I don't know where to start, no, because they were my influencers, and Manix for a while only, but no, Manix left right away for Australia, but we used to hang out with Santi to Baguio. So Santi's studio was our go-to place when we wanted to get that vibe, you know. But I didn't smoke. It's only that guy smoked. So what it was that was the height of my personal work, where I was doing a lot of nudes of artists. And I would call Santi, and I'd say, Santi, meron ka bang ginagawa this afternoon? And he said, well, I'm just hanging out in my house, I'm painting. So, don't you have any place to go? Because I need your house. I need your studio. I want to do some nudes. It's okay, I won't bother you. He said. Of course, he was there the whole time, you know. And even in one occasion, Manix became one of our models, no? Because Santi was practicing this shibari art, which he just adopted. Alam mo naman yan, marami siyang napipick up. Every travel he makes, he comes home with his ideas, you know. So he tied Manix up, shibari, okay, in the nude, but there was no proper rope, so he used the telephone wire.
God, bondage.
Poor guy. And I was there to document it, of course. I was there to photograph it.
That's when I experienced my first death.
Now, as far as Robert is concerned, wow, amazing. Marami yan. I'll just go down to specific. There's a classic photo I did of Robert and Nappy, where they were half naked, and it was taken in Robert's backyard. The story of that is one morning, lunch, right after lunch, after we had lunch, Robert invited us, Carol and I, to go to his house. He said, I have the best coffee in town, okay? So, fine, so we went. And he asked us to sit in the sala. He went to the kitchen, and he was preparing the coffee. Well, little did we know that he was going to roast the beans in a kawali, no? Okay, so we were waiting. Finally, after 1.5 or 2, after 3 hours, okay, we have the coffee. But this is like almost 5 in the afternoon, and we had a standing agreement that if I go to his house, I would take his picture for the nude. But because of that coffee thing, we lost the light, okay? So on another occasion, another after lunch thing, maybe it was in the cafe by the ruins, I don't remember anymore. Then we proceeded to his house, and I was supposed to take his picture. Finally, no? He agreed to do a nude, okay? And then when we got to his house, he said, okay, you just wait there. This was like 2:30 in the afternoon. And I was looking already in the area where it would be nice to photograph him, no? Nappy happened to be there, the son. So he was, what, about 11, 10 years old, okay? So, as usual, Robert's in the kitchen, and I was wondering what's happening. So, I think after 2 hours, I really had to go in the kitchen, no, and find out what was happening. You know what he was doing? He had a sack of flour because he was baking at that time. That was his hobby. He was transferring it to a plastic containers so that he could use the sack to make his G-string. Okay? And Nappy's G-string. So that took like 2 hours, no? And I said, okay, the inside of I did not use lights then. I didn't have lights. I just had my camera and my tripod. So I rushed outside in the back of the kitchen because the sun sets at the back of his house. And I saw this nice greenery, okay? And I said, this is perfect, okay? We have about 10 minutes to do it. So we rushed, and I got the posts, I posed them, Nappy and Robert, and then he rushed back up because he wanted to include the blowgun from Palawan, which he purchased. And then he had a pet python that was like, what was that? About 14 feet, a reticulated yellow python, and he said, let me try. He tried to carry it, no, but it was molting. So poor python. So I said, no, don't bother with the python anymore. Let's just go out. We have about 5 minutes of sunlight. And you know what, the funny thing that happened is that it almost looked like he orchestrated the scene, no?
Well, that's
because,
what Rick is talking about.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, their pet dog joined the photo. And I was on my like 6, 7 shots, and he was just running and running around. On the 12th shot, I got the image. So that's my little moment with Robert.
You know, when Robert was in New York, I saw a whole other side of him. You know, that's very different than, in some ways, than the Robert in the Philippines. It's actually where I saw his ambition, and it was really difficult because I felt very strongly that he was sick from the second. It was November 19. When was Pinatubo? 91? So it was November 1991. And he really went through a horrible, horrible experience with these absolute corrupt, a Filipino-American cultural group that brought Robert in, and they basically stole his money, so he lost his grant. And myself and a bunch of my friends who were part of an Asian American art collective were desperately trying to help him. And, you know, Jessica Hagedorn put together this Pinoy talk, which was Exit Art Gallery. It was one of the hottest alternative spaces during that time. And so Robert was able to find ways to make his life a little better. And it was difficult because if you look at the footage in the film, you can watch him, you can see him shrinking. You can see his health changing in this film. And in New York, you could feel it, like walang ganas, really. And yet, when would he come to life? When he knew he could perform. And he was funny. I mean, I took him to these openings at MoMA, and he tried to like jump into David Hammond's installation and perform with it. And I'm like, no, this is not the Philippines. You can't do that. Or I took him and Kid Latahimig to see the Blue Man Group, and he ruined my date, both of them, because he wouldn't let my date sit next. They wouldn't let my date, my kuyas, would not let my date sit next to me watching this performance. And then the two Baguio guys, tried to jump over the railing to get down to the stage to get to perform with this group called the Blue Man Group. And I'm holding their shirts. Beautifully playful. They came back and they, I don't know where they found this lamp, but they brought it back, and it was beautiful. It was marble. So Robert always made light of a situation, which to me is, you see it in the film. But what I meant by seeing the ambitious side of him is how he was able, again, I feel like he knew he was dying. So he did 2 of the Ego's graves in New York, right? And then the 3rd one he did in Brisbane. And Robert, we tried to do so many projects because he was so ahead of his time as a performance artist and as an environmental activist artist. We tried to do things, we wanted to get 2 performance artists, him coming from the south, another one coming from the north, and they were going to perform in Times Square. And a little bit like kind of a tribute to Rene Aquitania, who had also done something in CCP. But what was so, I think, hard for Robert was also to reconcile with this ambition, with a certain kind of ambitiousness that can happen when you get outside of the Philippines. I don't think it's uncommon, right? I think if Santi had stayed in New York longer, he would have, quote unquote, have made it as an international artist, hands down, and he would have been one of the first. And I feel like this film too, in some ways, captures some of this in the early stages, so to speak. I don't know, and it was hard for me to see that footage because he really struggled. And this group, we just couldn't believe what they did. And he was sleeping on the floor of this kitchen in the Bronx. It was really messed up. Anyway, and then here's a guy, he's so brilliant mathematically that he would take the subways back and forth, and he never had money. So he was like calling me up from these payphones, Angel, I only have a quarter. And I'm like, what? You have a quarter? I just use it for the payphone. Anyway, he figured out the speed of light in the subway so that if you stopped in a certain place, a painting would be in focus. It's in his sketchbooks, and I think Knapp has the sketchbooks. He was brilliant, and I hope that more people like Midori, what's Midori's last name? Yamamura, she helped to realize 2 of them, right, in Japan?
Does that include the Hiroshima needles?
The
was
needles,
that-
yeah. There was 2. Anyway, I mean, I'm just sorry that I'm rambling, but I mean, I think I'm trying to create, I think we're all trying to share not just moments in time that represent Philippine history, like social, cultural history in some ways, but Baguio and its relationship to the world on some levels. You know, when you see the first Triennale footage in there. That was quite amazing that we had, Brenda Fajardo, Imelda Indaya Kapihe. We had all these.
Also, Aro Soriano. One of his the painting there is actually now part of our collection.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, can we
Yeah,
hear from these young
Yes,
people?
yes.
Sorry.
If you have any questions, just to mention, Ryan and I were talking about.
I have the work.
You have the work.
I have the work of the needles.
Okay.
'Cause it was
You mean the footage?
no, it was never.
It was.
It
So
was
you
never
sketch.
executed.
No, but
Yes,
so
Midori, I thought, didn't
This-
they try to do it?
no, that was
So it has not
Kidlat
been
Tahimik
realized.
who did it.
Oh,
So he was
okay.
able to do the sketch, the
Okay.
study. And when he passed away, the people from Japan Foundation came to my house and said, Furuichi said, I look for a veteran Navarro. And then, I have a gift from Roberto. And
Okay.
they gave it
Because
to us.
Kawayan and I were talking about it. One of the plans was to realize it here, but
Yeah. Because
we
it was
didn't
never
know.
mounted.
We didn't know you
Yeah.
had a drawing. Maybe
It
in the
wa- but
future.
I have like the studies. I know all the details because we had copper needles made. And it was also with the help of some sound architectures and engineers in Japan because of the earthquake. So they
Yeah,
wanted to
oo.
dig 60 meters down.
So the idea was like a big
Acupuncture.
acupuncture.
Yeah. Healing the earth.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Any questions or comments? Anyone?
Hi po. I'm Kidlat from the University of the Philippines, Baguio. Yeah.
Did you write a dissertation? A
Yeah,
thesis?
yeah.
Wow. Hats off to you, young man.
Thank you po.
Wow.
My study is entitled Silent Lightning on the Screens, Life History of Kidlat Tahimik, the Father of Philippine Independent Cinema. Yeah.
And you were named after him.
I was named after him.
Sorry, I just kind of went through some of it. Congratulations.
But a bit of analysis on the both of the films. So I wrote some notes for guidance. So I thought of an acronym. It's called CCC from both of the films. It's Curiosity, Community, and Culture. So I was so interested of the curiosity of the artists because these curiosities led them to find out newer stuff about life. Then, as displayed by Roberto Villanueva and the Baguio Arts Guild, parang everyone became united, everyone became a community. And yung curiosity na to about the world, about the society, and about the community within our respective regions, nangyayari yung process of acculturation and enculturation as displayed by Roberto Villanueva. I just love that these questions in mind of those artists can lead to art. And the community that was built through this curiosity and culture is through art. So, art is CCC, Curiosity, Community, and Culture. Having made this dissertation, I was in University of the Philippines, Baguio for 4 years. So my first year was online school because it was the pandemic. At the first 3 years, I was just studying. I was an EPIS. It's a term in our school. It's called Independent People in School. So I don't have organizations. I just study. I'm just doing my degree. And in my 4th year, which was my thesis year, I decided to make a thesis on Kidlat Tahimik, having not known of him. I didn't know his films, so I had no background idea. I just know that my father named me after him. It was all about that. So, yeah. So I realized that I was so distraught about the result, the outcome of the thesis, about being, wow, the recognition of being kidlat and writing about kidlat, you know. But it's not all about that. It's really about the process. So having these, parang nakuha ko kay Roberto Villanueva yung point ng peace na where he was dying, di ba? So this my thesis was like, bakit ako focus at outcome? It's not about the outcome. It's not about my ego. I should burn it, you know. So parang I really loved how Roberto Villanueva displayed himself as the self in the other. It's not about me. It's not about how the people look at me. Na I'm great, I'm brilliant, I love to associate myself with other people. I love to be variated, you know. So I think that's my point. Parang the fast-paced lifestyle that we have here in Manila is so different in Baguio. Kasi in Baguio, you know, even if merong tapestry ng cultures, medyo grounded pa rin with the indigenous celebration of knowledge and indigenous systems. So, yung so oversaturation ng fast-paced lifestyle ngayon, technology is eating us alive, and I just love that na-realize ko through all of this and the gravitas of these films. Hindi ko pa po nakikita yung exhibit, pero I'm excited. Is that art is balance. Yung human side natin is nadi-display through art. While yung fast-paced lifestyle, yung structured lifestyle because of society, parang umahati lang siya dun. And sorry for rambling, pero yapping session. Being an artist is not just about the individual, yung curiosity, yung ideas, yung ideals. It is being one with the people. It's developing the self in the other. Yun lang po.
Thank you for sharing. Yes.
If Robert were alive, mamamanipulate niya tong lahat na bumagal talaga. Swear. Ayaw talagang lahat.
But Rica, I think you need to put
It's
some
really-
balance in there.
I mean, that's Robert.
And that's true. That
We can make his life faster. No. He will make our world slower. Exactly. And then I'd like to share lang just if you remember the Bridge of Cross Culture. So that was they had like a residency program in Japan. And so you saw some members from Bacolod, some Filipinos from New York, other artists. Anyway, the day before, so that day was the last day. So parang culmination. So the day before, they said, oh, we'd like to have you make your own personal works that's based on what you learned or what we had here. So they had just the following day, right? So everybody had like mga altars on the side and all this. And of course, Robert wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning, pressures all the monks and says, where's the holy bamboo temple? You know, and he has, despite him being so slow, he was able to manipulate them to cut a number of bamboos, and they go to the river. And that was just done in less than 24 hours. So from 6 o'clock till around 4 o'clock, in fact, he said, he called us and said, anong gagawin ko? Bahala ka. But then, he was able to incorporate his culture, which is that is before known to be like the Tukokan Bridge, the bridges in the Cordilleras. And so that's also how fast he can think. And to be able to deliver not only aesthetically, but you see people used it. So they were able to cross. So those are the things. Kasi, syempre, what we featured here are big works, no? But there are times when Robert is invited to, like, can you do the installation at the humanities of area in CCP? He will just say, anong gagawin ko? And then, he will buy all this pandan leaf and then he will go to all the security guard in CCP and says, marunong kang gumawa ng palaspas. Ikaw. And then one knows, turuan mo siya. And then the following day, it's an entire installation. But this is what also makes me wow about Robert is despite him being so slow, talagang ang bilis din niya, and a lot of his works are talagang community. He can make the children do it and all. I mean, like, always I said, eto na, magmamagic na naman. And then you will call, Myra, can you dance?
Influencer. First
First
influencer.
influencer. O, syempre. Tapos, may iingit si Santi.
You can't go there.
Well, I actually, all of that they're saying, actually, I appreciate, when I see the film, actually, I appreciate both characters, really, because for me, their rivalry or tension kind of also played out through me. But it then gave me a certain clarity on how to navigate, which has stayed with me and is unwavering. Also, by the fact that I'm also single-minded, but maybe since you're sharing tidbits, like I was first in the installation Labyrinth. Before that, already a dancer. I already was formed abroad. My generation of dancers were political in Germany, and I worked in the former Yugoslavia and saw the power of the icon in the Orthodox. So I was ready to receive whatever aesthetics the Baguio Arts Guild offered me at once, so it with a certain clarity. And Robert went to Ballet Philippines and just was looking for a dancer. And actually, I had met Kidlat already in Ballet Philippines. Had gone on a tour to Russia since I was new to the company. I didn't know the repertoire. I was left home, so I volunteered for the first conference in the arts at the Makiling, and somehow asked a question. So then everybody, I met people already, and so when Robert was there, so I volunteered. So that was my first, the one thing that's great about trying to talk to a dancer is they tell you at once the distillation of the idea that you can get. Like he said, the Adam and Eve, but he explained to me the form, that it's a fallopian tube and going into, so it was very kinetic already to begin with for me. So at that time, very classical ballerina, people hated me in the modern, but for improvisation and composition class, I did stand out all of a sudden from this very classical. So when Robert asked me to just go, and of course I have great sentiment about performing an installation because it gave me a different sense of space, different from the proscenium, and that broke me forever. I never looked back. So, but then on the, where was it? There was the earthquake, right, where the arts auction, and then the festival happened again. And Santi and I were supposed to collaborate in my particular performance. So we couldn't agree. So, anyway, it was the next day. Of course, Robert and him were in the house, and they were smoking, and that was when Santi had his second stroke. So Robert had to drive us to the hospital. And so the next day, Santi was not able to realize his installation. So it was alay ng Katipnero, me and Robert again. And then for Ego's grave, I also performed there. So actually, I never collaborated with Santi, although we would, no, we would always just exchange ideas. Ben Cab, Robert, Santi and Benisa. So
One in CCP
The
with
lab
Rico.
project.
that's a lab project. That's Enrico.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So, but my personal work,
Gotcha.
yeah, it was always Robert or Ben Cab, never Santi. So what I'm trying to say here is, like Robert was saying, I think in Damortis, or that one they're saying that Santi had the, I don't know which, down the river Shaman, and then up the river was Robert, so something like that. So there were two different kinds of shamans. So I did have that insight. And I did see how he was manipulative. Actually, I felt I had to be protected at a certain point, actually. So, but in a sense, it gave me such clarity that I've never looked back. It has served me well.
Myra, you're bringing up things that I just, for Kidlet, we're all talking very openly and stuff because that's who we are. But for people who aren't so familiar with us or the people that we're talking about, and even though you saw certain things in this film and in the other works that we have in the show upstairs, when we say manipulate, we're all manipulative. So I want to, sort of put to manipulate and manipulation into a context, and that
It was never sinister.
no, of course not. And we all let it happen. I mean, I'll share a story with you about when he was part of Exit Art. So Exit Art, again, was the biggest alternative space in New York during a certain time period. And it was fantastic because they showcased many marginalized artists. And when Robert was asked to participate as a part of something that this writer, performance artist, playwright, Jessica Hagedorn put together, I think there were maybe 10 of us all together that were part of this project. And Robert was that live Balol. Now you can imagine if, this is during a time when indigenous artists absolutely had no visibility. I mean, maybe Jim, there's one Native American, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but in New York. But people were just enamored with Robert. I mean, several of my girlfriends, went after him. But in terms of, they went after each other. But in terms of the way that relationships can work in art relationships, that comes part of the territory in some ways. But now you have this layer of infatuation and romanticization and, oh my God, is that guy indigenous? And he wasn't. He's not. So there's all these other issues that came up during this time, because there's that thing of, why are you making pretend that you're indigenous? And Robert never did, actually. He made it quite clear that he was identifying with the human being, and that if you're a human, like the performance that you see him do in the film in the Museum of Natural History, he's trying to say something larger than I'm appropriating Cordillera indigenous culture, right? And so when he was doing the Exit Art thing, go figure, Robert's walking in Chinatown and he sees this big bomb okay? Like a bomb, a real bomb. And his girlfriend calls me up and says, Angel, the cops, you got to come here now. And the performance this is like a couple of hours before the performance, before the event. And I'm like, these are payphones. These are not cell phones. We don't even have beepers back then. Anyway, so long story short, Robert, we had to get the cops. I had to talk to the cops, make sure that they didn't arrest him, tell him that he was a performance artist, he was from the Philippines, and he was completely harmless. And the cops are like, this bomb it might be a live bomb. And we said, wait, this is Canal Street. Are the Chinese selling live bombs? Like, we were like, what is this? Anyway, charming Robert, was able to get the cops to help him bring the bomb. And it was installed as part of his installation. And it wowed everybody on the coldest night in New York City that were in that audience, because he really did something that people had never seen. And then to really play with talking about, American colonialism and all this stuff. I mean, and performance and installation, right? And I don't know how you young people feel about, what was it like for you to see this performance and installation work in the film? I'm really curious.
Anybody would like to?
Is that new for you? Or?
Kiri. I just want to ask Kiri's thoughts as a filmmaker also watching this.
Yeah, I've only really knew about Robert through his son, who studied at the PHSA. My boyfriend at that time was friends with, and they keep talking about Robert. And then I saw this work in Lopez Museum, but I think we always need to rewatch films, because now it strikes me very differently.
Yeah.
And I think I'm amazed by the will and the power that he had to exercise to be an artist. This was what I was observing as someone who didn't know him, but who knew everyone else around him, also trying to understand the context of, like, the constant use, of course, you mentioned it, they manipulated us. So I was also trying to understand this, if this is something cultural, generational, this is still acceptable today. And then at some point, maybe because of my thoughts about community as well, sometimes Myra also mentioned at some point that she also needed to protect herself. So these are issues that I kind of also thought about beyond the art, but also the relations to the community, to women, to younger artists. All of these things, I kind of like trying to frame it this way. And yeah, this is a wonder for me, given that so many great male artists were produced in Baguio. Also, this kind of dynamics, because you all work with them, became artists, but I also want to understand the relations of how you supported each other or also protected each other. I'm sure it was not as smooth as it might appear to be. I'm sure it was messy. There were breakups, there were discord, and these are things that we need to also learn.
That's a soap opera, Kiri.
I know, we're not talking about it, but these are also things that we can learn from as communities, also working with indigenous groups, appropriation, very relevant until today, I think. Rather than speak about it secretly, these are, I think, conversations that need to be done, and we can learn from the practice or lessons from previous artists or communities like the Baguio Arts Guild. That's all.
So a lot of
Thank
these projects that we made, everybody knows, walang pera. Talagang walang pera. Yung tipong, we were like on a technical day with lab project, the ballet thing with Enrico Labayan, and they're all like, Rico feels like he's the most director of the world, the power and everything. And then after, wala kaming food. Gutom na gutom kami. Tapos nobody had literally money. This is how it was before. So, talagang community. Kasi parang, how crazy are you? Why will you work for free and you feel like you're working with the best of the best and all. Pero, and when Robert won the 13 Artist Award, he goes to me, Guy, kailangan umuwi na kayo kasi may nag-iimbita sa akin, pero ako lang yung iti-treat niya. And then, so, okay, ang kapal ng mukha mo. Di ba? After shooting, after all this, okay, we go home. And then, 10 o'clock, he arrives. Nandito ka na? Oo, hindi ako pinakain, kape lang. But this is how the whole thing really is. And even us doing the Baguio Arts Festival documentary, you're gonna see it upstairs. So you're going to notice that the credits are actually handwriting. Kasi noon, wala naman, you cannot put credits right away. You go to another company, pay millions just to put credits. So, the tripod, pinapababa lang namin na gano'n, sinuscroll down. Yung handwriting ni Alwin Raamilio, may gupit-gupit pa. It was just like that, one gabi, like, anong gagawin ko na? Ako na magsusulat, na ganyan. And, it was like me, Santi, Robert, and Alwin Raamilio, and Bernie Solinas, doing that, just the credit. So, just the credit, which people can do now in 10 seconds under CapCut. Kami, it's like half the night. Talaga mga 5 hours and all. So, it's really community. And to let you know about the video upstairs, all the while, I thought it was posted on the internet. So si Kawayan, kasi family di ba? Sasabihan ka about this exhibit ng 4 days before. And then tells me like, oh, I need this, I need that. And I'm like, I'm so busy, So I said, bahala na. And I looked on the internet, Ashas, or site.
It's on YouTube.
No, it's not. It's
Oh,
the
I saw it.
it's the 5th Baguio Arts Guild. This one's like the
this
early
is the first, yeah.
1992
Right.
guild. So I'm like, shit, where will I find this, di ba? Anyway, my son goes out and he says like, I think I have it on my computer. And since I told Kawayan, if it's, the will of Santi and Robert, it will happen. And Dave Baradas and everyone.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, when Himalaya pulled it. At first, it was the lab project. And he goes, no. I said, how come it's so long? That's just short. We went forward. It's the one. And I'm like, Kawayan, ano ka? Bakit okay? Diba? And, it was here. But, I did not plan that 1 week before, and I'm like, Kawayan, why do you always treat me like this? But then I can never say no to the people in Baguio. Like, when they tell me, even if I don't get anything from it, ikot talaga yung puwet ko. And really, the magic of that is, it was there. It didn't take me so long. So, parang, a bit like before, magic siya.
That's a perfect example of, again, when I was trying to bring up about circles and circular and continuums and, knowing Kawayan since he was 9 years old and then collaborating with him on Markets of Resistance was an extraordinary moment. But somewhere there, we all kind of knew that this was coming down the pipe somehow. And I couldn't imagine doing markets without Kauaian at the helm for Baguio. And, you know, you think about, or I think about, because people ask me all the time, why do you stay in the Philippines? Why do you stay here? Like, whatever. And I'm like, well, you have to come here. And actually, really, you have to experience what my life and my friendships have been like in Baguio specifically to understand why so much of my careers are in this country. And here's the weird thing. I mean, with Markets of Resistance, to go back to funding, Kauaian and I were laughing because Markets was produced in some similarities to all the Baguio Arts Guild festivals. It's, whatever you can get, basically. And a lot of friends donating, a lot of friends volunteering. Ben Cap had to sell his paintings. And, I mean, I'm talking about the arts festivals. With Markets of Resistance, a lot of us personally had to put money in. And with the book, I was fundraising all the way up until 2 weeks ago. Right? I mean, and this is all coming out of this kind of, again, whatever that energy is of where the arts and community, family all come together. And I feel like, like you, it's hard to say no. And it's not just no to the Baguio people. I feel like as the country itself becomes more and more community-based, and you're seeing this in Lukban, in different parts of the Philippines now, where all these artist-run places are sprouting up. And I think the Guild was really at the forefront of all of this. I mean, I remember when Charlie Coe and Dennis and Pee Wee, these guys, we were all in a bar up in Baguio in 1988, hanging out like, getting totally drunk, and they're brainstorming about doing Viva. So, and there you go. And so you see that kind of interconnectivity. And how lucky are we that I always say this to my former students, how lucky are we that we come from different disciplines? And I love that we can collaborate, right? And this is something that the Guild also really, really supported and brought out. I mean, again, this is how I know these two. It's through Santi, actually, and Robert. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not a fan of Roberto's installation work, and I think most of it is because I didn't really know the man. And so I came to see this. I thought this was an important thing for me to see because I like the man, and I thought I came here to see more about his life. But unfortunately, I'm getting his life more from the talk, more than the film. The film really showed his work, and which I kind of heard about, and I've seen, some of it. And like I said, I wasn't a great fan. But there was something about Robert, because I saw him in New York when he was in that down period, and actually Bea Jacinto and I carving. And so I came out from California and I said, we have to find Robert because he's, and so Bea and I found him exactly in that studio that was in that film, and he was in really bad state. But so we brought him food and we said, what do you need? You need to eat. And so this film is important because it does really show his work. And I wish, and I'm a great fan of this guy who was sitting here and that guy over there. And I think I really am a fan of their work because I also know them and I also know their life. And so I think for people who may not know the artists, I think it's important to sort of hear the artists talk about themselves and about what makes them tick. And so you can agree or disagree, but I think it just adds to the context of their work, why they do what they do. So
you know, the film is commendable, especially after you describe the, you know, hoops that you had to go and jump over in order to get this, because it is important that people see Robert's work. There's no doubt about that. And I think that what really stands out to me about the man, about the artist, is his amazing ability to work with community, which is very unusual for artists. Not easy for art. Definitely Santi struggled with that. He had a hard time, you know, with having to share his work or even give credit sometimes, you know, to other people for his work. Very different. Robert needed the community to make his work happen. And he was, you know, he didn't distinguish whoever he worked with, whoever he could manipulate, whatever that is, who was willing to help him achieve what he had in his mind. He did it. And that's really commendable because, you know, especially for Filipinos, we don't necessarily, you know, we still kind of suffer from the crab mentality when somebody has that reputation, successful na. Usually people don't want to have to lend a hand, right? I mean, it's not in their nature, but so it takes talent. And I think Roberto did that. He was able to really get somebody excited to carry the water from that point to this point to deliver to him. And that's really very special. So thank you for making the film.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a good way of closing the session. So maybe last words? Rica, siguro more, a little bit about the archives that you're...
Okay. So I hope.
Siguro
So we have a lot
that.
of parang, kasi nga labor of love, and we had like camera. It was not available before. So, and my husband also loves the art. So that's the other side of us. So we have a lot of footages and everything. And I hope that we can actually make more projects, like maybe a story on Santi. Kaya lang baka madaming magalit. Alam mo
Challenging
naman.
yun, challenging.
No, but it's really interesting because the way he saw art and the regional art, you know, yung pagbaba ng mga igorot with their puwet and their long hair, yun na, to CCP, na nabaliw lahat, you know, started, you know, people opening up and accepting regional art. Because before, they, you know, when you're long hair, you go there, the guards will get you out. But this time, Mrs. Rojas welcomed them with all their...
And she put money into the art festivals.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, yun, let's hope that, you know, like, we can make good with our other archives. Yeah.
Thank you.
We need
Thank
that.
you, ladies.
They have such